Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bookercast, the podcast where books come to life.
And I'm so excited to dive into another amazing story with all of you.
Whether you're a bookworm or just love a good story, this is the place for you.
Every episode, we explore incredible books, talk about their stories and characters, and share insights that'll make you fall in love with reading all over again.
All right, let's not keep you waiting any longer. Get comfortable, and let's jump right into it.
Sounds good.
Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring a very controversial and complex world of Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita.
Oh, yes, Lolita.
It's a novel that's both revered and reviled, and we want to kind of unpack today why it continues to spark debate decades after its publication.
I think it's a fantastic choice for a deep dive. It tackles uncomfortable subjects with a really unique blend of linguistic beauty and psychological complexity.
Right.
It's one of those books that just makes you think.
It makes you think.
Yeah.
For those who haven't had the chance to read Lolita, can you give us a quick overview of what this controversial story is all about?
Yeah, so the story revolves around Humbert Humbert.
Humbert Humbert.
Yes, he's our narrator, and he is obsessed with young girls. He calls nymphets. He becomes fixated on Dolores Hayes, who's a 12-year-old girl,
12 years old.
that he nicknames Lolita, and through a series of manipulative acts, he inserts himself into her life, and the novel chronicles their journey across America told entirely from Humbert's perspective.
So, right from the start, we're dealing with an incredibly unreliable narrator.
Absolutely.
Someone attempting to justify some pretty reprehensible actions.
Right.
How does Nabokov signal this unreliability to the reader?
Well, Nabokov uses some really clever techniques.
Okay.
For example, Humbert frequently contradicts himself.
Yeah.
He claims diagnoses of potential homosexuality
Oh, wow.
and total impotence, but dismisses them as a joke.
Right.
This inconsistency, coupled with his attempts to rationalize his pedophilia through intellectual and psychological jargon, immediately raises red flags for the reader.
Yeah, it's almost as if Nabokov is daring us to see through Humbert's facade,
Absolutely.
forcing us to question every word he utters.
Yes, you have to question everything with Humbert.
That must make for a very active reading experience.
Oh, absolutely. You can't passively absorb Lolita.
Right.
You're constantly analyzing, deciphering, trying to understand the reality beyond Humbert's distorted lens.
It makes you complicit in the narrative, but also challenges you to resist being seduced by his charm and wit. Speaking of manipulation, can you talk about how Humbert gains access to Lolita in the first place?
Well, he marries Lolita's mother, Charlotte Hayes,
Oh, what?
solely to be near Dolores.
Wow.
It's a chilling demonstration of his predatory nature.
Yeah.
He even contemplates murdering Charlotte, but fate, as he sees it, intervenes when she's tragically killed in an accident.
Of course, he twists this tragedy to further justify his pursuit of Lolita,
Right.
seeing it as some kind of sign or permission.
It's like he almost wanted it to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He views events like the Enchanted Hunter's hotel incident, the series of coincidences, as confirmation of his twisted destiny.
Right.
This recurring motif highlights his delusion, his desperate attempt to frame his actions within a grand, tragic love story.
But lurking beneath this facade of romance is the grim reality of Humbert's exploitation and manipulation.
Oh, absolutely.
What are the consequences of his actions, both for Lolita and for himself?
Well, for Lolita, she's robbed of her childhood, forced into a role she doesn't comprehend, subjected to psychological and sexual abuse.
Right.
The novel hints at her attempts to manipulate Humbert to gain some agency within her limited power,
Right.
but ultimately she's a victim paying a heavy price for his obsession.
And Humbert, does he ever face any real consequences for his actions?
He eventually loses Lolita, who runs away with another equally predatory figure, Claire Quilty.
Claire Quilty.
Yes, driven by jealousy and rage. Humbert murders Quilty, but it's a hollow victory. He's already lost Lolita, and his act of vengeance only underscores his descent into madness and despair.
So we're left with a sense of tragedy, not just for Lolita, but for Humbert as well.
Right.
He's a man consumed by his own desires, ultimately destroying both himself and the object of his obsession.
That's exactly it.
So the novel's impact extends beyond the immediate tragedy.
Right.
Lolita also reflects the anxieties of post-war America, a society grappling with rapid social change, the burgeoning youth culture, and an underlying fear of moral decay.
Yeah, it's a book that holds a mirror to its time.
And yet Lolita manages to transcend its specific historical context.
Absolutely.
It continues to resonate with readers today, sparking debates about art morality and the nature of desire. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because Nabokov, despite dealing with such a horrific subject, manages to create a work of undeniable beauty and literary brilliance.
His prose is lyrical, almost poetic, drawing you into Humbert's world, even as you recoil from his actions.
Yeah, his use of language is just incredible.
You almost find yourself admiring his wordplay, his clever use of language, even while being repulsed by the events he describes.
It's a very strange feeling to have as a reader.
Right.
Yeah.
And that tension is key to the novel's impact.
Mm-hmm.
Nabokov doesn't shy away from the darkness, but he presents it with such artistry that you're both captivated and disturbed.
It's true.
It forces you to question your own responses, your own judgments about beauty and morality.
Absolutely.
It's certainly not an easy read,
Not at all.
but it's a powerful one. And I think that's what makes Lolita such an important work, even if it's deeply unsettling.
I agree.
Speaking of complexity, one of the most debated aspects of Lolita is the character of Dolores herself. She's often seen as a victim, but Nabokov also gives us glimpses of her agency, her manipulation, even her own burgeoning sexuality.
Right.
What's your take on Lolita's character?
It's a question that's haunted readers and critics for decades.
Right.
Is she a helpless victim or a cunning manipulator who takes advantage of Humbert's obsession?
Right.
The truth, as with most things in Lolita, is far more nuanced.
Right.
She's a child undoubtedly traumatized and exploited, but she's also a product of her environment, exposed to adult desires and behaviors.
Right.
We see her playing Humbert, using his infatuation to her advantage,
Right.
but we also see her vulnerability, her pain, her longing for something she can't quite articulate.
The novel doesn't offer any easy answers about her feelings for Humbert.
No, it doesn't.
She calls him dirty man at one point, but also admits to being sort of fond of him.
Right.
It's a confusing and unsettling dynamic that adds to the book's overall sense of unease.
Exactly. And that unease, I believe, is precisely what Nabokov is aiming for. He wants us to question our assumptions, to confront the gray areas of morality, to see that even in the darkest corners of human experience, there can be moments of beauty, of tenderness, of connection.
Right.
It doesn't excuse Humbert's actions.
Right.
But it forces us to acknowledge the complexity of the situation, the impossibility of reducing it to simple categories of good and evil.
You know, it's so interesting you say that because it makes me think about how often we try to simplify complex situations in our own lives.
You want easy answers.
Right.
And this book doesn't give us that.
This book really challenges you to sit in that discomfort.
To sit in the gray areas.
The gray areas.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the real learning happens.
I agree.
When we can be okay with not having all the answers and just kind of sit with the questions.
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's almost like he uses the language to sort of gloss over the reality of his actions.
Exactly. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And that's where Nabokov's genius truly shines.
Yeah.
He doesn't allow us to simply condemn Humbert and move on.
No, he doesn't.
He forces us to confront the seductive power of his narrative, the way he uses language to manipulate our perceptions, and even elicit a twisted sense of empathy.
Absolutely.
Yes. There were moments where I found myself getting swept up in his descriptions, his wordplay, even his humor. It's like he's casting a spell over the reader, drawing us into his world.
Exactly. And that's why Lolita remains such a controversial and challenging work. It pushes the boundaries of literature, forcing us to confront not only the darkness of Humbert's actions, but also our own capacity for being drawn into his web of deception.
It makes you realize how easily we can be manipulated by a skilled storyteller, how language can be used to distort reality and justify even the most horrific acts.
It's true, and I think that's part of what makes it so disturbing.
Right.
You know, it's like seeing how easily we can be fooled.
By a master manipulator. And it's through this manipulation of language that Nabokov reveals one of the novel's central themes, the power of narrative. Humbert is constantly constructing a narrative to explain and justify his actions, shaping the story to fit his own desires. He wants us to see him as a tragic romantic hero, a victim of fate, rather than the predator he truly is.
Yeah, he's trying to control the narrative.
It's like he's trying to rewrite his own story to erase the ugliness and replace it with something beautiful and poetic. But of course, the truth always seeps through, no matter how hard he tries to bury it.
Absolutely, the truth has a way of coming out.
And that tension between the constructed narrative and the underlying reality is what makes Lolita so compelling. We're constantly trying to peel back the layers to see through Humbert's lies and glimpse the truth of his actions and their consequences.
It makes you really work. as a reader.
It's a truly active reading experience, demanding that we engage critically with the text and question everything we're being told.
Exactly. It's not a passive read at all.
And that's why, despite its controversial subject matter, Lolita has had such an enduring impact on literary and cultural discourse. It's a book that has forced writers, critics, and readers alike to confront difficult questions about the ethics of storytelling, the power of language, and the nature of desire.
It's a book that really started a conversation.
Also a book that's been interpreted in countless ways, sparking debates about its meaning and its legacy. Some see it as a cautionary tale about the dangers of obsession, others as a subversive exploration of societal taboos.
And there are those who view it as a masterpiece of dark humor, a satirical commentary on American culture and the anxieties of the post-war era. It's a novel that refuses to be pinned down, offering multiple layers of meaning and inviting a wide range of interpretations.
I'm curious, what do you think about the novel's portrayal of American culture? There are those vivid descriptions of the motels, diners, and tourist traps that Humbert and Lolita encounter on their journey across the country.
Yeah, Nabokov captures the seedy underbelly of the American dream, exposing the hypocrisy and emptiness lurking beneath the surface of post-war prosperity. The vastness of the American landscape, the constant movement, also reflects Humbert's inner turmoil, his desperate attempt to outrun his own demons.
It's like the landscape itself becomes a mirror to his psychological state, a reflection of his fragmented and distorted reality.
Exactly, and through this juxtaposition of Humbert's internal world with the external world of 1950s, American Nabokov creates a powerful and unsettling commentary on the moral and social anxieties of that era.
And he does so with such wit and precision. His prose is filled with puns, wordplay, and allusions, creating a linguistic tapestry that's both beautiful and disturbing.
It's a testament to his mastery of language, his ability to craft a narrative that's simultaneously seductive and repulsive. He invites us to revel in his linguistic brilliance, even as he exposes the darkness lurking beneath the surface.
It's a delicate balance to strike, and Nabokov manages it with incredible skill. It's no wonder that Lolita has been praised by critics for its stylistic innovations and its enduring influence on contemporary literature.
Yeah, it's a book that really pushed the boundaries of what's possible in fiction, demonstrating the power of language to both illuminate and deceive, to captivate and repel. And it's that complexity, that refusal to offer easy answers or moral platitudes that has made Lolita such a lasting and controversial work of art.
It's a novel that demands to be discussed, debated, and analyzed from multiple perspectives. And it's a book that, like, its subject matter stays with you long after you've turned the final page.
It really gets under your skin.
It does.
Yeah.
Speaking of lasting impacts, Lolita wasn't just a literary sensation, it also made a huge cultural splash. How has the novel's reception evolved over time, from its initial publication to its current standing in the world of literature?
Well, the initial response to Lolita was a mixture of shock and outrage. Many critics condemned it as pornography, a blatant glorification of pedophilia. Its publication was even delayed in the United States due to fears of censorship.
Really?
Yeah, it was very controversial.
It's understandable that the novel provokes such strong reactions given its subject matter. But as time passed, and as critics began to engage with the text on a deeper level, a more nuanced understanding of Lolita emerged.
People started to see it differently.
Many began to recognize the brilliance of Nabokov's craft, the way he used language to create a complex and unsettling portrait of obsession, manipulation, and the unreliable nature of memory.
It's a very layered novel.
And they began to appreciate the novel's satirical edge, its sharp commentary on American culture, and the anxieties of the post-war era. Lolita became seen as a subversive work, challenging societal taboos and forcing readers to confront uncomfortable truths.
It definitely makes you think about things in a different way.
Of course, the novel remains controversial to this day. There are still those who condemn it as morally reprehensible, and its inclusion on school reading lists continues to spark debate.
That's true. It's still a very sensitive topic.
But even those who disagree with its content often acknowledge its literary merit. It's a novel that has had a profound influence on writers, critics, and readers alike, shaping our understanding of what's possible in fiction.
Absolutely.
And it continues to be a subject of fascination and analysis, inspiring countless articles, essays, and even films. It's a testament to the enduring power of Nabokov's vision, his ability to create a work that transcends its time and continues to resonate with audiences across generations.
Yeah, it's definitely a book that stood the test of time.
It's a novel that raises challenging questions about art, morality, and the human condition. And it's a book that, despite its darkness and complexity, offers moments of beauty, humor, and even a strange kind of tenderness.
It's a very complex book.
As we approach the conclusion of our deep dive into Lolita, It's important to address the ethical considerations that inevitably arise when discussing work with such sensitive subject matter.
Absolutely.
We can't ignore the fact that the novel deals with pedophilia, a horrific crime that inflicts lasting trauma on its victims. And it's crucial that we approach this topic with sensitivity and a clear understanding of the power dynamics at play.
It's a very delicate subject.
It's also essential to remember that Lolita is a work of fiction, not an endorsement or justification of pedophilia. Nabokov himself was deeply opposed to censorship, believing that literature should be free to explore even the darkest corners of human experience.
Right. He believed in the power of art to explore difficult topics.
And while we can appreciate his artistic vision, it's equally important to acknowledge the very real harm caused by sexual abuse and to advocate for the protection of children.
Absolutely. We can't forget about the real-life implications.
That's why it's crucial to engage with Lolita in a way that recognizes its complexities and its ethical challenges. We can admire Nabokov's craft while simultaneously condemning Humbert's actions and acknowledging the devastating impact of abuse on its victims.
We have to hold both of those things in mind.
It's a delicate balance to strike, but one that's essential if we're to fully appreciate the novel's nuances and its enduring significance in literary and cultural discourse.
It's a difficult conversation, but an important one.
And ultimately, it's through thoughtful and critical engagement with works like Lolita that we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves, our society, and the complex moral questions that continue to shape our world.
Yeah, it's through these difficult conversations that we can really grow and learn.
You know, it's fascinating how Lolita manages to spark these complex conversations, even decades after its publication. It seems to touch on something universal, something that transcends the specifics of its time.
I think you're right at its core. Lolita is a story about obsession, about the ways in which desire can twist and distort our perceptions of reality. It's a theme that resonates with readers across generations, even if the specific context might change.
And it's explored with such depth and complexity. We see how Humbert's obsession warps his view of Lolita, transforming her from a real person into an idealized object of his desire.
Yeah, he creates this fantasy world
Wow.
where his actions are justified, even romanticized.
And Nabokov masterfully uses language to convey this distorted reality. The prose is beautiful, almost poetic, but there's an underlying sense of unease, a dissonance between the beauty of the words and the darkness of the events being described.
Right, it's like a beautiful facade.
It's like he's luring us into Humbert's world, letting us experience the seductive power of his narrative even as we recognize its inherent flaws.
Exactly, and that's what makes the novel so challenging. We're forced to confront our own complicity as readers, our own capacity for being seduced by a skilled storyteller, even when we know the story being told is a lie.
It's a reminder that language can be a powerful tool for manipulation, a way to distort reality and shape our perceptions of the world.
It really is.
And it's through this exploration of language and narratives that Nabokov raises profound questions about the nature of art itself. What is the responsibility of the artist? Can beauty exist alongside darkness? Is it possible to separate the creator from the creation?
Yeah, those are big questions.
These are questions that have been debated for centuries, and Lolita offers no easy answers. It forces us to grapple with the complexities of art morality and the human condition.
It's a book that really makes you think.
And it does so in a way that's both intellectually stimulating and emotionally engaging. It's a book that stays with you long after you finish reading it, prompting you to re-examine your own assumptions about desire, obsession, and the power of storytelling.
Absolutely.
It's certainly been a thought-provoking deep dive for me. I'm sure our listeners have plenty to contemplate as well. What would you say is the most important takeaway for someone exploring Lolita for the first time?
I would say approach it with an open mind. Be willing to engage with its complexities and its challenges. Don't shy away from the uncomfortable questions it raises. Allow yourself to be disturbed, to be provoked, to be challenged in your thinking.
And remember that Lolita is a work of fiction, not an endorsement of Humbert's actions. We can condemn his behavior while simultaneously appreciating Nabokov's artistry and his willingness to explore the darkest corners of human experience.
Exactly.
It's through this kind of nuanced and critical engagement that we can truly appreciate the power and complexity of Lolita, a novel that continues to provoke debate and inspire reflection decades after its publication.
It's a book that continues to spark conversation.
It's been an incredible journey exploring the world of Lolita.
Okay.
What are your final thoughts on the novel's enduring legacy, its impact on literature and culture?
I think Lolita's legacy is one of enduring ambiguity. It's a novel that resists easy categorization. a work that continues to challenge and provoke readers in profound ways. Its exploration of obsession, desire, and the power of language remains as relevant today as it was upon its initial publication. And perhaps that's what makes it a true masterpiece. It's a novel that continues to spark conversation, debate, and a deeper understanding of the human condition.
Well said. It seems that Lolita, much like its namesake, continues to captivate and elude us, leaving us with more questions than answers.
And perhaps that's the ultimate beauty of a work like this. It doesn't offer easy solutions or moral platitudes. Instead, it invites us into a world of ambiguity, complexity, and enduring mystery.
Thank you for guiding us through this fascinating deep dive. It's clear that Lolita is a novel that demands careful consideration and thoughtful analysis.
It's been my pleasure. I hope our listeners feel equipped to embark on their own exploration of this complex and rewarding work.
And to our listeners, we leave you with this final thought. As you delve into the world of Lolita, remember to approach it with an open mind, a critical eye, and a willingness to confront the uncomfortable truths it reveals. It's a journey that may challenge your perceptions and leave you with more questions than answers. But it's a journey worth taking.
Indeed, and one that will undoubtedly enrich your understanding of literature, humanity, and the enduring power of storytelling.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the controversial and complex world of Lolita. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Bookercast. We hope you enjoyed diving into it as much as we did. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Your support means the world, and we can't wait to hear your thoughts on this episode.
Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share this episode with your fellow book lovers. And let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. See you in the next deep dive. Bye for now, and happy reading.